came out of the shower to a house that had gone completely quiet, and when I crept down the hall to check on what I found through the crack in her bedroom door was my 6'4", 250 tattooed husband folded onto a tiny pink plastic chair, knees up around his ears, solemnly sipping imaginary tea out of a doll-sized cup. I have to back up and explain who my husband is, or this won't land the way it landed on me. His name's Derek. Has been since before I met him. He's a huge man, 6'4", broad as a doorway, the kind of build that makes people step aside in a grocery store. Tattoos cover both his arms and climb up the side of his neck. He's got a beard going gray. He rides a Harley you can hear from down the street. He works with his hands, and he comes home tired and quiet most nights. He is not, on the outside, a man you picture at a doll tea party. So when I came down the hall in my towel, dripping, and heard our daughter's little voice coming from her room, and then heard a deep rumble answering her, and I looked through the gap in the door, and there he was. Our daughter, Lily, had set up a full tea party. Her little table, 5 dolls arranged in their own little chairs, and my enormous husband crammed onto the one tiny pink plastic chair meant for a preschooler, his knees nearly at his chin, holding a thimble-sized teacup in 2 fingers like it. Was TH most important object in the world? But it was more than that. He wasn't just sitting there being patient, enduring it, checking his phone, waiting for it to be over. He was all the way in. He was talking to each doll, in a different voice for each one. He complimented one doll on her hat. He asked another how her day had been and then answered for her in a little high voice. He told Lily the imaginary tea was the best he'd ever had, and could he please have some more? And Lily, my Lily, was lit up like Christmas morning, pouring pretend tea, giggling completely, perfectly happy. I stood frozen in that hallway in my towel, and I'll tell you, my eyes filled up so fast I could barely see, because I knew something my husband didn't know I knew. I knew exactly why he was sitting in that chair. I knew what had happened 2 weeks before that had put him there, and it had nothing to do with patience. I watched the clock. He sat on that tiny chair for 90 minutes, an hour and a half. This giant, exhausted, hard-working man, folded into a toddler's chair, playing tea party with total devotion. And I knew the reason, and it wrecked me. 2 weeks earlier, Derek had come home after a particularly grueling 12-hour shift at the shop. He was covered in sweat and grease, his steel-toed boots heavy on the floorboards, looking thoroughly defeated by the world. Lily had run up to him the second he walked through the door, holding that exact same tiny pink teacup, and asked him to come sit in her room for a party. Derek had sighed a heavy, bone-tired sigh. He patted her head with a grease-stained hand and said, "Not right now, little bird. Daddy's too big, and he's too tired. I'm just a grumpy old bear today. I'd probably just break your toys anyway." Lily hadn't cried. She didn't throw a tantrum. Instead, she had slowly lowered the cup and nodded with a solemn, quiet understanding that no 4-year-old should possess. "I know, Daddy," she had said, her little voice devoid of its usual sparkle. "You don't fit in my world. You only fit in the big, loud world." I was standing in the kitchen, out of sight, and I saw his face completely crumble. This tough biker, this giant who could lift a motorcycle engine block, looked as if he had been shot. He didn't say anything to her in return. He just stood frozen for a second before turning and walking into the bathroom to shower. Later that night, I found him sitting on the edge of our bed, staring blankly at his rough, calloused hands. "She thinks I don't fit," he whispered into the dark. "She thinks I'm too hard for her." Derek had grown up with a father who was exactly that, distant, a man of the big, loud world who never once sat on the floor, never once pretended, and never once played. Derek had sworn to me long before Lily was born that he would be different, but in the exhausting, daily grind of providing for us, he realized he had accidentally started building the exact same wall his father had built. So, Seeing him folded onto that plastic chair 2 weeks later wasn't just a cute, viral dad moment. It was a man actively dismantling a generational wall, brick by tiny brick. It was a promise. I watched through the crack in the door as he delicately picked up the imaginary teapot. "More tea, Mr. He asked a stuffed rabbit, his deep, gravelly voice softened to a warm rumble. "He says yes, please." Lily beamed, pouring nothing into the little cup. I didn't walk in. I didn't interrupt them to say dinner was almost ready or to tease him about his posture. I just stood in the hallway, letting the water drip from my hair onto the hardwood floor, crying silent. Eventually, I crept quietly back to the bathroom, dried off, and got dressed. When I finally walked into the living room almost an hour later, the tea party had concluded. Derek was stretched out flat on the rug, Lily using his giant, tattooed bicep as a pillow while she read a picture book out loud to him. He looked up at me, gave a tired but fiercely proud smile, and put a thick finger to his lips. He had figured out exactly how to fit into her world, and I knew, looking at them, that he was never going to leave it again.